Directory, a folder, it's just the same term used for the same, a different term used for the same thing. Directories is a term that we've used in DOS and also Linux operating systems or iOS, whereas folders is used almost exclusively in the Windows GUI, such as Windows XP and afterwards. In the FAT file system, you'll find MAC dates and times are kept in a directory. The MAT, what is that? That's the modified time, the access time, and the creation time. In the NTFS file system, though, you'll find MACE. MACE refers to modified, access, creation, and entry modified. So let's start off with the modified dates and times in a FAT directory. A modified date and time is basically when that file was last opened to be written to. Now remember, a file can be modified but not modified by an application. Access. Access is the last time the file was opened. It doesn't matter if it was for reading or for modification. Even viewing a file's properties will change the last access date. Now remember, that's the last time the file was opened, not that you actually saw it on the directory. Creation. Creation is the date and time that the file was created on the media and or in a specific partition or directory. So in other words, you can have a file that has a modification date of an earlier time and a creation date of a later time if that file was moved from one partition to another partition. That would mean it was created now on that new partition. It's a brand new file there, even though the last time it was accessed was earlier. There's an additional dates and times under the NTFS file system. For in the prior slides, we've been talking about a DOS operating system, things like we see on thumb drives and multimedia. But on hard drives today, you'll see the NTFS. One of the additional dates and times, there are 9, that they have is entry modified date and time. And this occurs when change is made to the master file table itself. There's also a file name date and time in MFT. This is the date and time that that file name was first seen in that MFT table or that partition, and it will write that file name there. Why is that important to you? Because you could actually see if the file name, date and time, and the creation date and time are the same, then you know that was the first time that file was written there under that name. But let's say you have a creation date and time that is older than the file name creation date and time. That means that a prior file had that name at some point. The operating system keeps a number of log files with date and times, but here's just a couple that we'll talk about. The info2.dat, which is the recycle bin, event logs like the system application security event logs, and the app log files, index.dat, off items log. The registry entries can all contain created and last modified date and times. Link files, more commonly known as shortcuts, they can contain creation dates and times, modified dates and times, last visited date and times. All those files have date and times within them. So Office document files can contain MAC dates and times as well as the last printed times of some items. Programs such as Word, Excel, PowerPoint, WordPerfect, Visio, Microsoft Publishing Files all contain this metadata that are dates and times where certain events occurred. Now remember, this is relying upon the dates and times taken from the BIOS clock, the computer clock. So you could have a document that was created on a system, and according to the metadata, it was created on one date, but last modified on a previous date. That would be an indication the file has been copied from the original place where it was created. Database files such as Access, SQL, Oracle, and believe it or not, database files include a PST file from Exchange or Outlook. An MBX file would be something that was from the early mail systems of Outlook, Quicken Books or VersaCheck, the individual files within the database can actually contain dates and times also. So once again, it's important to know what database you're working with and where within that database would be the relevant dates and times that you could read and interpret. System swap files can contain date and times from files that are held in memory. Index.dat file are a good example of this. As you look into the Win2K or XP page file system, they can contain date and times in there. For the Windows 95 and 98, it's the Win386 swap file, and for Windows 3.1, that's an old system for the young ones. It's the 386 spart.par or the 386 swap file. Email files is a great source of dates and times. They can be on the received lines that you see. They can also be in the body of the email and in the hidden portions of the email which you do not see normally, otherwise known as the full headers. They can also be independent of the host computer's clock. Those dates and times within an email header can come from the mail server, from any mail server it touched during its process of getting to your laptop or the end system, as well as the server that receives the files, whatever date and time stamp it uses, all the way down to your local PC or phone as to what clock it's using as it's received the mail. Even a piece of hardware, like a hard drive, can contain date and time information. A good example of this is the smart drive data on hard drives. It keeps track of how long the drive has been operating, how many times it's been turned on, etc. Where they can come into play? A prime example would be a fraud occurring on the internet with people selling hard drives purporting to be brand new, and in reality they're refurbished, or they're just cleaned up and then sold. They were seconds off the line, or somebody had the hard drive, it failed because of extreme heat. The drive is reformatted and then resold and being told to people that is a brand new hard drive. By using the correct software, which you'll actually obtain in this class, you can look at the smart drive data on a hard drive and actually determine how many hours it's been in operation. I had a case just like that one time where I was given 10 drives, and these drives were being sold as purported to be brand new drives. In all reality, all of them had been used for 10,000 hours plus. So instead of paying an $80 fee for the hard drives, they were selling them for the normal $350 to $400 each. Dates and times are normally calculated from encoded values, but there's a number of ways this has been done. But in the long run, just remember, it all comes down to just doing a little math, and there's a lot of programs that are made to automatically do this for you. So yes, we need to now talk finally about encoded dates and times. How many different types are there, and what's available to help us in dealing with them? I know what you're thinking right now. After going through this whole thing on time, yes, it would be nice to have a couple drinks right now. But what I'm trying to tell you here is there's very many different ways in which date and time formats are written. So as you can see, there's quite a few that are different. And then again, they're used specifically in different files or different parts of the operating system. Just to think about the Windows cookie, they have a low-high value, which you have to reverse to figure out the date and time. The Unix numeric is probably the most widely used one, along with the Windows file time. That's why programs like the EnCase, FTK, or WinHex are nice. They do all the hard work for us in interpreting a timestamp and putting it into a format that we can actually read, otherwise known as human-readable code. The thing for you to remember, though, is understand what they're doing. It's one thing to use a tool. It's another thing to explain to a jury, this is what the tool is doing for us automatically, and that you've checked it, and you know that it's accurate and correct. Can it be hard to decode a window and date time format? Sure, it can be because there are so many of them. But lucky for us, we have people that write those programs as free tools. A good example would be Craig Wilson, who provides a free tool for this. He's at digital-detective.co.uk, and it's called the decode.asp program. As we wind down here, just remember that each application or operation will affect the date and time differently. Good example would be, instead of setting your time to London, who does observe daylight savings time, set it to Casablanca, which does not acknowledge daylight saving time. So this concludes our initial class on dates and times. You should now have a really good foundation on time and dates and its many formats, especially in the forensic work area. In the forensic work area, this is the most single important element in explaining why certain data is significant in a case. A piece of data may be significant in a specific time period when it's not in a different time period. That concludes A Wrinkle in Time.